Hello and welcome to the Brown Sign Project podcast. I'm Carly.
Hi, I'm Colton.
And today we've got joining us Dominic Wong.
Hello, hi, great to be here.
Dom, thank you so much for taking the time today to speak to us. Before we let you loose, we're going to give our listeners a quick introduction about you and what you do. So, Dominic is an award-winning marketing director. He was the first marketing director for Warner Brothers Studios Tour London, the making of Harry Potter, studio tours in Hollywood, and also the Warner Brothers World in Abu Dhabi. He's worked on a number of different projects with Merlin Entertainment, including the launch of the UK's roller coaster called Stealth in Thorpe Park, Manterswords Berlin, and also Marvel 4D experience at Manterswords London. He's passionate about innovating new products within the tourist attractions industry, and we will be diving into that a little bit later.
Yeah, before we get to the real questions, I've got some really not very deep questions in order to get to know you better. So we're going to go with this or that. So you don't really need to explain. If you want to explain, that's cool.
Okay.
But I'm going to give choices. So online shopping or going actually into the shop itself?
I don't like shopping, so online shopping.
Awesome. Amusement park or day at the beach?
Oh no, that's really difficult because I live on the beach.
Well, I mean, then the obvious choice is day at the beach, right? Every day?
I mean, I go on the beach every day, and I don't go to an amusement park every day. So I would say, it's a tough one, but I would say I'd have to go on the beach every day because it's nature, it's fresh air, it's good for your soul. Oh yeah. And you go for a dip in the sea, particularly on a cold November day like today.
Oh. No, I'm good not never being awake. Wake up, I'm good. Cool. Ninjas or pirates?
Pirates, because there's more history and excitement.
Oh, okay. Chocolate or caramel?
Chocolate.
Good choice. Music or podcasts?
Podcasts. TED Talks. TED Talks are podcasts, so yeah, I'd say podcasts.
Sweet. And work hard or play hard?
Play hard.
Good choice. Excellent, thank you. I feel like that gives us a proper deep look into your soul, obviously.
Okay.
Whether you're an
The reason why I say play hard is because we sometimes forget this when we're in our busyness, that we work to live and we don't live to work. And I think we can get so caught up in stresses and emails and social media and kind of the pressures of outside that we often forget that the reason why we work is to play. And you can get so caught up in your work life that you forget that the whole point of it is to enjoy your life. So that's why I think play is much more important than work.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as an industry, because we do generally have fun at work, you sort of forget sometimes that it is really actually work. So that's quite dangerous in some cases. I think you sort of get so involved with it.
And I think, I totally agree. And I think when we think about our work or, going into this particular industry of theme parks and visitor attractions, that really the reason why customers come to us is to have fun, is to be inspired, to be excited. This isn't an industry where, we're trying to sell insurance or pensions or, or something which is more kind of standard. People seek us out to have fun. And if we're not having fun in our jobs, then it's not being reflected on the end user. And I think, again, as we get into, some of the questions I'm sure you're going to talk to me about in terms of careers is, you can get bogged down in jobs. You can get bogged down with the nitty gritty, the politics, the reports and all that kind of stuff. But, if you just come back to the essence of why this industry exists, it's to have fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely, totally agree. So that leads me into our first question, Dominic. And the first question is, in the world of Dominic, what does a normal day look like for you at the moment?
Well, at the moment, we're in lockdown, so things are a little bit different being at home. But I suppose what I've learned to do, so I became self-employed about 4 years ago when I came back from Warner Brothers World in Abu Dhabi, um, was to kind of, because I've got a couple of children, I wanted to make sure that I was there for them. So this, I think, is a huge opportunity for so many people to recalibrate their lives. And when you have to commute, and when you're in the office, and when got one more email to do, or one more video conference or conference call to do, you kind of forget that you've got a family back home, and you can get home tired, or kind of your brain's still in work mode, and that's not fair on your family. And what since I became self-employed, and I think what's really been highlighted in the lockdown is that we've got this huge opportunity to have a much better life-work balance. So the way I approach my normal day now is to segment my time into chunks. So up until my boys go to school, that is their time. I don't check my emails. I don't look at my phone. I focus 100% on them. Then when they're at school, then I have a chunk of time to do my work, my emails, whatever I need to do, chunk of time to have lunch, and then a chunk of time before school pickup. And then after school pickup, I have a chunk of time, but it's completely flexible. I don't put anything in there. I kind of say to myself, I'm not going to look at my computer. I'm not going to set up a call or accept a call unless it's absolutely urgent and there's a deadline, because then that gives me time to be there for my kids and for my wife. And yesterday actually was a perfect example of how that came to fruition. My son called me. He's in secondary school. He's had a bad day. He asked if I can go and pick him up. Absolutely. I've got my diary's blank for exactly those types of things. I picked him up. We had a really good chat about how his day went and what was going on. We passed a friend of his who's had a puncture on his bike getting home, and he couldn't get home. So, we took him home, put his bike in the car and gave him a lift home. And I think, that's the reason why I think I like to, really organize my time. So then I have time for the important things, because at work, you're totally away from your family life. You're totally away from relationships, which should be the pure essence of what you're about. And it works really, really well. And, if the kids, do the homework, or my youngest kid was doing arts and crafts, then I do have a bit of extra time to do stuff that I might need to do, but it's not a prerequisite. So to answer your question, my normal day is set into chunks where I focus on work, but also give myself time to focus on the important things.
And what are you working on at the moment? Can you share that with us? Is there any what's in the pipeline for you?
So I'm moving myself very much into innovation, and kind of coming up with new products. And I'm working with a innovation center in the New Forest, a new tourism or / travel app, which encourages people to explore their local areas more. It's as all apps are, they're disruptive, and it's very, very exciting the way we're going with this, and we're launching in a couple of weeks. So very much within the tourism, but just kind of refocusing my skills and my passions into a slightly different area. Excellent.
Yeah, interesting I'm all about the tech. That's definitely my my avenue. So I'll be interested to see it when it happens. And so thinking about kind of the career that you've had, because you've worked in some really incredible attractions, what was your most memorable day at work? If you had to go back over your career and think, that's the day that I would relive again, or maybe you would never relive again?
Well, yeah, oh wow, there's so many to think about, and I think it's very easy to say the big high profile launches, like when the Harry Potter Studio Tour opened its doors. We had the red carpet launch. That was a lot of work to get to the point of opening the doors. And I took J.K. Rowling around on a private tour, being one of the first people on the Stealth roller coaster when we launched that at Thorpe Park. Those are hugely memorable days, particularly because you work so hard to get to that point. But I have to say, for me, my most memorable days are when I'm creating something, you know, because I'm a very creative person. And, you know, I love photo shoots and video shoots. And my most memorable day was in Los Angeles when we were at the Warner Brothers studio tour lots, you know, on the Warner Brothers lot. Mm-hmm. And we were filming a video for the relaunch. We're relaunching it or rebranding it to Warner Brothers Studio Tour Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, that day was the day I had most belly laughs. And everything we just burst into laughter. And it was, you know, we were on the Warner Brothers lot where all these amazingly famous films were being created, and we had lights, we had crew, we had cameras. And the most memorable day of that whole, the memorable part of the whole weekend was we had everything set up, we done the rehearsals, and because I was kind of the creative director, I said action. So here I am on the Warner Brothers lot in a really famous, iconic location, which you would recognise from any TV program or film. And we had all the lights, we had all the actors, and then I shouted action. And just at that point, a tour cart came around the corner with some real tourists on it. And the whole kind of purpose about the Warner Brothers Studio Tour is that you could see real stuff going on. You could see real filming, you could see famous people. And I felt so famous at that point, because here, you know, can you imagine these tourists coming around the corner, hearing actions, coming around and seeing all these lights, lights and cameras and everything. And it just topped such an amazing weekend. It was just so much fun. And I think that was my most memorable day out of many.
Yeah, I bet there's not many people that can say they've said action on a Warner Brothers lot.
Exactly, yeah. I think a lot of people can say action, but when you've got all the equipment there, it just looks so much more impressive, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of people dreaming about that moment, I can tell you.
Exactly, yeah.
That's fantastic. So kind of during your career, you must have gained loads of skills and experiences. So what I would like to kind of ask you is, what skills do you think is important for people to try and think about developing for them to get into the industry?
I think there's a couple of things from me on that. I think they're personality skills as opposed to hard skills. You know, I think, you know, being in a tourist attraction, you are, you know, and what I love about being, you know, when I worked in the theme park or at Madame Tussauds or at the studio tour, was that you walk out of your office and your visitors are there right in front of your face. You know, this isn't, you know, you're making toothpaste and then, you know, the toothpaste goes on the supermarket and then, you know, you never see the customer basically. And the office at Thorpe Park was right in the middle of the park. So you could hear the music, you could hear the screams, you could hear the delight of all our visitors. And I think being so close to the operations, you know, meant that you were on the coalface. And I think one of the skills which I most admire, which I, you know, did a lot, particularly in my early days, was get my hands dirty, get involved. You know, at Thorpe Park, I loved getting out behind my desk, going litter picking, you know, tidying up tables during the busy lunch times. You know, or, you know, when I was at Studio Tour, you know, it starts stowing, you know, didn't even think twice, just grab a shovel and start, you know, shoveling snow to allow visitors in. I think it just shows to other people that you'll do what's necessary, as well as, you know, what it's like for our front of staff employees to see what they do every day, and that can only build relationships. So I think, you know, get rid of your inhibitions and just kind of get up from your desk and just, you know, help out really. Get your hands dirty, get involved, and you learn so much more about your visitors, your customers. You learn so much more about the operation. You know, what the pain points are, you know, where busy days are. You know, it's very difficult to learn all of that sitting in front of your computer. And the other skill I would say is just trust your gut instinct and be true to yourself. I think when you're in it, when you're in the job, when you're in a corporate, particularly large corporate, you know, there's so many decisions, so many different opinions, lots of different influence. I think people respect you a lot more if you're true to yourself. You know, if you're happy to be a yes person, if you're happy to sit back and just do what you're told, then that's fine. But I would really encourage you to kind of, fight back if you'd feel uncomfortable with that, and say no, or kind of express your opinion. And particularly when I was in Abu Dhabi, there was a lot of yes people, and I felt uncomfortable with that. I felt uncomfortable being a yes person. I'm not the type of person to put my feet on the desk and just let it happen. I'd rather push against it and fight for what I believe is right. So and I think people respect you a lot more for that.
Yeah, and I think it's hard when you're in the initial kind of stages of your career to understand that actually your opinion is valid, and that you really, especially if you're sitting in a room of quite senior people and you feel a little bit like, oh, maybe these people have more experience than me, or these people are, further along in their careers, or whatever it might be, is that actually in a visitor attraction, you all know as much as each other, really.
Yeah.
If you're spending time out with the guests, you probably know more about the guests than those people who, like you say, are more office bound, who don't get the time to be out there. So, you have to know when's the time and the place to express yourself.
Yeah,
but
exactly. Yeah,
you should be growing that as to make yourself feel more confident. That
as long as you do it in a respectful manner, I don't think anybody would kind of criticize you for giving your opinion. And you're absolutely right, and I would say to my team a lot, so, I don't have all the answers. Don't look at me for the answer all the time. I might write a strategy, or I might write a plan, or I might kind of say, look, this is what I think we should do. It doesn't mean it's right. And it takes time sometimes, particularly for junior people, to have the confidence to say, yeah, I agree, or I don't agree. But I think, if you have that in your head, right from the beginning, I think you're going to serve yourself really, really well.
Me, I'm a big believer in people expressing themselves and expressing their opinions at work. It's one of my real passions. And I think I want to do it, so I get a bit.
And I suppose this comes back, we can get very philosophical about this, but at school we're kind of trained not to. We're kind of trained to be submissive. Don't put your hand up, don't talk, don't do this, don't do that. We're not really taught what we should do, and I think listening to ourselves is such an important skill, which we're not taught. And what we want to do, what I try to do in my teams is foster an environment, a culture where you can say respectfully, I don't think I agree with you there.
Yeah.
And I'm totally fine with that. And I suppose it's different. You have to judge it on the type of person, who you're working with. Mm. But, I think, particularly in this day and age, particularly with the amount of fake news, everyone pretending everybody thinks they're an expert. Sometimes, just pushing against it, just gently, might just have the answer. And I think, sorry.
I think in combating that kind of everyone's an expert mentality, that actually when you start to crowdsource information, when you do say, okay, well, there's 10 of us in this room, let's get 10 people's opinions, that really does start to break down that, well, I'm doing this because this is what I believe in. Well, actually, if you have 10 people in the room, then think about what those 10 people want, and that you're much more likely to come to the truth than you are to have one person sort of leading the charge, I think.
Yeah.
So on the back of that then, what do you, obviously you've had a really great and varied career and in terms of skills, etc., but do you have any top tips for self-development and progression? So, getting from one of those jobs to the next?
Yeah, I think, the last point was really valid in terms, for self-development, is listen to other people, outside of your echo chamber. Actually, if you, your social media feed, you curate the people that you want to listen to, and they're saying the same things as you. In the industry, we have lots of conferences and lots of, trade shows. And I felt that I was saying the same things over and over again, or hearing the same words over and over again. And that is, the best example of an echo chamber where you're hearing the same things. And sometimes the best things to do is to hear opinions from outside of the echo chamber. When I moved to Bournemouth when I came back from Abu Dhabi, I set up a networking event called the Beach Walk and Talk, where surprise, surprise, walk up and down the beach talking. And I met.
Great name.
And I met so many people who were outside, who I'd never would have spoken to before. Authors, inventors, life coaches, all sorts of people who I've never crossed paths with really, and talking about business, and sometimes just having a little bit of a different angle on things just changes things completely, and that's one of the successes of the Walk and Talk. We've been running it for 4 years now, is that sometimes people have a really difficult conundrum in their head, or a problem or an issue, and rather than kind of beat themselves up in front of their computer all day, they actually get out, and kind of sometimes airing it, getting it off your chest helps so much. But then having somebody who is non-competitive, somebody who doesn't know you at all, somebody with no judgment, might just go, well, have you thought about that? And there's been so many times as Walk and Talk when people went, oh yeah, why not just think of that? And other people's experiences are much more valuable than the experiences you have. And I think, going very deep again, I think this is one of the big problems we have with lack of diversity in senior management positions within, not just the tourism industry, but all across the country, the world, really, that we're not listening to different voices. And I think that's not good.
Yeah.
So speaking, listening to other people, and TED Talks and podcasts are really good ways of listening to other people's opinions. And since lockdown, I've been listening to a different TED Talk every day. And what I tried to do was not choose topics which interest me. I tried to choose topics which I would never in a million years would have chosen, just to hear a different opinion, just to hear something different. So I think that would be my first kind of top tip for self-development.
Yeah, go out and sort of listen to other voices, and not necessarily the people that. Yeah, and I think interestingly, I was having a conversation with somebody recently about a project, and I won't name the project. I'm sure lots of people know my feelings about certain things. But we were discussing a project, and my friend said, "Oh, but it'll be really popular. Everyone we know goes to theme parks." And I said, yeah, think about the people that we know, though. You're not talking about the general population. Of course, we know lots of people that go to theme parks. Both of us have worked in theme parks. Yeah. You really are blinded by a lot of the people sitting around you and their experience. I think, getting out and hearing different opinions is definitely the way forward.
And do you know what? That's just jolted a memory for me. I won't say which organisation I was working for at the time.
Yeah, we're not naming names.
Yeah, so it was in a conference room, and our research came back, and or visitor numbers came back or something, and it said we weren't getting enough families. So the GM, who was single, brought us in. And there was the gay head of marketing, there was the single GM, there was me and this other guy who were both single at the time. Right, how do we get families? And I looked around the room and I was thinking, we are probably the worst people to figure out how to entice families into this attraction.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't have the expertise in your arsenal, right? You need to go and find other people.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I was going to say, talking about kind of networking, I think that's really, really important for people to start doing if they haven't started to do that already. Something that I've joined is Lunch Club. I don't know if you guys heard of it, and it's kind of like a one-to-one networking session. It's like speed dating, but for networking. Yeah, but it's not dating, but it's just like you get to meet loads of random people. And for me, it's been, as you mentioned, Dominic, it's just been eye-opener just speaking to like doctors, solicitors, architects, and just getting their different versions of the world and perspectives that I would not have seen working in my industry. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Get out there, get networking, get learning from other people. So brilliant advice on that one.
And what I say about networking is there are loads and loads of networking events, hundreds even, and you can get overwhelmed by it. And that's, you know, kind of where the walk and talk came from. When I moved down to Bournemouth, I didn't know anyone, and you know, I wanted to start networking and making contacts, and I tried a few, and some of them, you know, were not good, and I thought, right, well, what do I want out of this? So hence why I created this walk and talk. So with networking events, you have to kiss a lot of frogs and see which one works best for you.
Yeah, and I think in some cases what works for you for maybe a certain job that you're doing, because, you know, maybe it's a more of a sales networking thing, and you're working in sales at that point, and that makes sense. But actually, you know, for you personally, you might want to do something totally different. I've always had, I moved a lot, and I think probably all of us have that experience of we've moved a lot for work, because that's the nature of the beast. And so whenever I turned up at a new town, you'd have, like you said, when you come to Bournemouth, how do you meet people? How do you find people? And recently when I've moved to new towns, I've always joined the park run and started volunteering and starting getting to know people in their park run community, and totally, you know, not related to work or whatever, but actually through that I've met some people who then have gone on to work with, or I have gone on to, so it's not always about, you know, just because you work in this tiny piece of the industry, don't network just with those people, because that's not really where you make the big connections. Finding people outside of that circle is a really good way of working as well.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, we can get so caught up in our job title or our industry that we forget that it's the person that we are, that we can work with people. You know, you have skills which are transferable. You have qualities which are transferable. You know, having a sense of humour doesn't mean that you can only work in one particular industry. So, you know, you never know where things are going to go, where things are going to lead to.
But also, talking about vital skills for our industry, I would suggest a sense of humour is one of them.
Well, it comes back to fun. You know, you've got to have a smile on your face if you're on a roller coaster. You know, you're not going to look grumpy.
Oh, I would look grumpy if you put me on a roller coaster, but that's a different story.
Carly, you're missing out. You're absolutely missing out.
No.
Dominic, I want to step back just a little bit. Just kind of focus on the self-development part.
Yeah.
So for people who kind of want to start getting involved in the industry, is there any kind of like online courses, do you think, that they can start kind of developing and doing to kind of boost up their CV in the current climate that we have, where we can't actually do any face-to-face kind of training or that kind of stuff?
I'm not aware of any online courses, and that's because I'm not looking for them, I think, or haven't come across them.
Well, I guess your TED Talks are probably gearing you in some way.
Yeah, again, you know, I think it's kind of getting out there, really, and the best experience you can have is work experience. I think you can do as many courses, you can do as many exams and essays as you can do, but until you're kind of there in front of somebody, you know, welcoming people and saying hello and saying goodbye, or kind of, you know, putting your thumb up to say that, you know, every security checks are in place, then I kind of think that the work experience trumps online courses, particularly in our industry. The answer is no. I don't know of any online courses that I could be doing in the meantime. I think it's learning as much as you possibly can, but then it's just getting out there and putting your feet on the ground, rolling your sleeves up and helping out. And I think, you know, this is probably another tip I would give for self-development, is that, you know, when you go into a job, you'll have a job description, and yes, you're going to be targeted and, you know, and have to do certain works. But I kind of think, you know, get involved in areas that aren't within your specific remit. You know, kind of as we talked about before, go and meet other people in different departments. There's so many things which you can influence in a culture and an organization, whether it's a theme park or not, in which you can develop yourself. So some of the people that have progressed the most that I know of are people who have done things outside of their job description, and that's because of networking, that's because of getting involved and showing willing. That could be as simple as, you know, starting up a running club, or it could be, you know, influencing the culture, or, you know, putting together a team, you know, to fight a particular issue. And I think the more you can think outside of your job description, then I think the more willing people are to know who you are, you know, and find out who you are. And I think in terms of progression, you know, yes, you can hit your targets. Yeah, you can do amazing piece of work, but I actually think it's the intangible, softer stuff which gets you noticed.
I think volunteering plays a massive part as well, especially these days when there's not a lot of jobs out there. So I think if people can kind of just get out and try and do some unique voluntary experiences, kind of like maybe even like join the St. John's ambulance and maybe become a first aider, that potentially might help out as well. I think maybe like regarding like online courses, like maybe kind of do like basic customer service, so you just kind of have the basic understanding of how to look after people and how to kind of deal with problems and solutions. So I think that they'll be quite good to as a beginner for people.
So, and I was going to say, and not underestimating other experience. So, like you said, Dom, if you actually getting experience is really useful, and whether that you might have an idea that you want to work in a museum or you want to work in a specific type of attraction, but actually the way I got into tourist attractions was I worked in retail through my university course. And then I went and worked in retail in Madame Tussauds, which is where I met you guys. And so then you go, okay, well, nothing about my background got me a job at Madame Tussauds other than the fact I'd already worked in retail. You have to be able to see those skills as transferable, and those skills are always transferable regardless of where you pick them up. I think you're totally right. Yeah,
and volunteering is a great idea. You know, as you said, particularly in this the circumstances we find ourselves in, because there are a lot of vulnerable people out there. I volunteer at the food bank at the moment, and yeah, some of the stories that come out of there are crazy, you know. But going back to volunteering in cafes stuff, I think everybody should work for a short period of time in the service industry, in a cafe or a pub or so, just so you know that you don't want to be treated like people treat you.
Yes.
You know,
I think we should do it as almost like a replacement national service. Like, you don't have to join the army. You do have to work in like your local, I don't know, Boots or Weatherspoons or whatever. Like, you definitely need to go and spend a couple of Saturdays just being yelled at by someone because you don't have the right sausage rolls or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
Building experience.
And there's, I can't remember the exact quote, but somebody said something like, you can tell the character of somebody based on how they treat the waiter or waitress.
It's Sirius Black. You just quoted Warner Brothers. Oh my God, John. Warner Brothers, you just quoted, I'm pretty sure it's no, it's Dumbledore. I lie.
Well, there we go. The Harry Potter connection there.
Harry Potter connection. See, it's got into your brain.
It's engaged, yes, and it's embedded.
I didn't realise, but it was in there.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much for that information. So this is our last question we're going to ask you, and I think it's the biggest question, and it's the best career advice you've received in your career. What was that, and how's that kind of changed you and your perspective?
It was my very first boss when I was at Capital Radio, and his whole philosophy was go against the grain. You know, he was a bit of a maverick, came up with some very zany, you know, crazy ideas, which got him into a bit of trouble, but that stayed with me, I think, throughout my whole career. And I think that's maybe why I'm kind of really wanting to move into innovation, because I want to go against the grain. I want to disrupt. I want to change things. I want to come up with new things. And you know, the general manager when I was at Madame Tussauds, you know, was probably at the far end of the crazy spectrum. Some of the things he did was insane, but you know, they all you know, they stood out, and you know, and that's what, you know, we're in a very crowded world, and you know, we need to stand out. So I try to keep it a mantra in a lot of the things I do. Some people, organizations don't like that. You know, they don't want to go against the grain. That's fine. Pick and choose when you do it, and it's a risk. You know, going against the grain is the opposite of what we talked about before at school, of suppression and obedience. And sometimes it works, you know, sometimes it doesn't. If you don't push the boundaries, and you know, if people don't look up, then it's meh. So my mantra is very much go against the grain.
Excellent. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm definitely in that camp. I think we spend a lot of our lives being, like you say, being told this is how to behave and don't do that, and sit down, be quiet, whatever. And actually, that's not how the world works, really. If we all just sat down, there'd be, think of all the amazing, especially technological advances that we've had in the most recent past, and they're not created by people sitting down and doing as they're told and keeping the status quo. You have to really push the boundaries, and especially in a creative role in the industry, that's your purpose, is to push the boundaries, to think about doing things that people haven't done before.
Yeah. And if you look at all the tech startups, that are famous right now, if you are kind of more cautious and said, oh, I don't know, I don't want to do Uber because it might upset the taxi drivers, there's so many examples of that where, someone being a little bit bold, and you don't have to be crazy, you don't have to be, but just being a little bit bold, being a little bit brave, and having confidence in yourself, could make or break. And I think just thinking outside it's such an overused phrase, thinking outside the box, but particularly in the creative industries, particularly in marketing, particularly in theme parks, again, we want people to have fun. Let's not forget that. How do we push the boundaries to make people have fun?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, and I know we said it was our last question, but I'm going to pull this one out because I think you've obviously traveled a fair bit and you've seen a few things, and my own sort of personal question is, what is the best ride experience, whatever it might be, that you've been on? What have you had? Where did you go? Because I'm just thinking about that, thinking outside the box. Actually, I've been on certain rides and just thought I could never have imagined this.
There's two things. One, the Cars ride at Disney is just phenomenal. The level, the attention to detail, to the theming, to the ambience, to the atmosphere, to the humor, capturing the humor of the film. And the ride was actually secondary, to all of that. You go for the ride, but when I went there to Cars Land, everything, it was just perfection. And I think in terms of out of the box, the vertical gardens in Singapore are just, whoever thought about that. And in fact, Carlton, I think I saw something. Did you post something today? The whale?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, I mean, that just looks phenomenal. And that's out, who would have thought to create an attraction or a museum in the Arctic Circle that you could look at whales, in the shape of a whale and everything. So I think, the two that spring to mind are Cars at Disney, because that's such a wow. And the vertical gardens in Singapore, where it's just, so impressive, so impactful, and so right for this day and age, where you've got a tourist attraction which is green and helps the environment. I think I would say those two things.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Dom, thank you so much for taking the time to answer our deep questions about the tourist attractions industry and also sharing your experiences with us. So, if you want to find out more about Dominic, where can we find you online?
Yeah, sure. So my website is dominicwongmarketing.co.uk. I'm in LinkedIn, as everybody should be, I think. I don't really go onto Facebook and Twitter anymore. I'm kind of, there's too much negativity in those two places, so I tend to steer well away from that. So or you can find me, when the theme parks start opening and the visitor attractions, the museums start opening, I'll be there.
And we can find you on a walk and talk. We can definitely come and join you on one of those.
You can 100% join us on a walk and talk, get some fresh air, sea breeze, and meet some interesting people and hear their journeys. And the thing about the walk and talk is we don't talk about, it's not sales mission. It's not like, do you want to buy a website or do you want to buy my services? It's much more beneath the bonnet of the business, and kind of understanding people's journeys, people's passions, why they did it in the first place. That's what interests me, and that's what really inspires me, because it's the human behind the business which is most important, because that's going to endure. A lot of your listeners are going to be, taking jobs, starting businesses, doing their own thing, and sometimes they're going to work, sometimes they're not going to work. Doesn't matter, fail. That would be my advice. Fail, because if you don't fail, you don't learn, and you don't understand who you really are. I think, I've had a couple of businesses which haven't done too well, and I think it's probably the most learning I've ever had in my life.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure.
No, thank you for inviting me. Good luck with it all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dom.